Hi guys, welcome to our second session for week 2 for GS 241 web design. Hi guys, how are you guys doing today? Today we're going to go through the announcements. We're going to continue to look at some site content information, and then we're going to do a demo on the week 2 assessment. And then we'll have time for any questions that you may have or anything you're not understanding. Our next lecture is scheduled for Wednesday at 2 p.m. Don't forget, Christy is our learning coach, and her schedule is posted in the announcements for the Student Success Center. I will be in there Thursday from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Mountain Time, and on Friday from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. Mountain Time. If you need any help, you can just come in and see one of us. If for some reason you can't make any of those times, please send me an email so we can find a time that we can both get together and I can help you with whatever you're having trouble with. Site content, placement and position. We started this yesterday and we're going to finish it today. Good designers think about how elements relate to each other. How do elements relate to the page goals, the company goals, that sort of thing? So knowing your goals and the goals for the page are key to placement. That is why ads are found in similar places on web pages. If the goal is to get people to click on them or notice them, then placing them in locations where historically people look and click helps them to meet their goals. This is one of the things where you have to consider your homepage. As we talked about yesterday, that homepage is like the teaser for the rest of the site, right? That homepage is what's going to help users decide whether or not to continue looking at your site or to hit the back button and find another site. So your homepage needs something on it that's going to stand out, right? Something that says, oh, wow, this designer really has some skill. They're really good. They're really creative. And if you don't have anything like that as of yet, then your homepage needs to at least speak very professional. Maybe if you don't have an actual piece to put on that homepage just yet, maybe that homepage needs to show off your skills. Not necessarily meaning a design piece, but you need to highlight your skills with the Adobe suites. You're an expert at Adobe Illustrator, Adobe InDesign, whatever programs that you're becoming an expert at. Show those off on your homepage. Let them know that those are the things you do. Let them know the kind of things that you are good at producing, like logos and business cards, letterhead, posters, CD covers, book covers, whatever the case may be. Showcase that on that homepage so that they continue through your site. Where are the other elements on the page? Well, think about the websites that you visited. In some ways, this appears to be the most obvious part of design. After all, if you already have a logo in the upper left, you're not going to place content on the top of it. True? It's most of this is kind of common sense, but there are some things that you need to think about. Because you also need to think about the context or your position of certain things. Placing an ad block in the middle of a text block implies a sense of connection between the two elements. And if that's not the case, then you don't want to imply that connection. How many of you have been on a web page, and this happens more often than not? How many of you have been on a web page and you've been reading about something, and then there's this little ad block, and it doesn't necessarily specifically say what it's about. It kind of leads you to believe it's about whatever you're on that page researching, and you click it, and you're suddenly taken to some third-party website that has nothing to do with what you're researching. We've all fallen victim to that, right? I hate it. It drives me nuts. So be sure when you're placing things like that, and if you decide to have third-party advertisements on your website, some people do this to make money. You can pay per click kind of thing. If you decide to do something like that, be considerate of the user. Make sure those ad blocks are not placed within something that would lead your user to believe that has something to do with what they're reading about. Placing horizontal lines after headlines or bylines can create a sense of disconnect between the title or byline and the content. And this is kind of where web design differs a little bit from print design. Because in print design, we use the lines and things like that to add emphasis, right? If you had a heading on a page and you put a line on it, it just emphasizes that heading. But it still goes with the text below it. Well, in web design, it separates things. So keep that in mind. If you underline something, it's going to separate it from whatever's below. And you don't want to do that with headings, like paragraph headings. If you're going to have a heading and you're going to have some sort of text about that heading, don't separate the two. Make sure they stay together. Where you place your elements can make a difference. As they say in real estate, there are 3 important rules: location, location, location. If the Mona Lisa were stored in my aunt's garage, it would have the effect on people that it does hanging in the lavore. It's still the same painting, but if it were sitting next to cans of old paint, dirty lawnmowers, dusty boxes, you know, that sort of thing, it's going to look different, right? It's just not going to look the same. Most likely you're going to think it's a fake, or that the person's crazy and they hung what's supposed to be a famous copy of a painting in their garage. It's just going to look out of place. Well, when you're picking your graphics and your things like that, you've got to think about that. Look, take these 2 pictures, for example. There's the Mona Lisa in 2 different settings. It looks totally different in that garage setting versus hanging on the wall of the lavore, doesn't it? Both environments are, yes, they're old-fashioned, but one of them's kind of ghetto, and the other one's, of course, not. It's a museum wall. So you need to think about that with your graphics. Because here's the thing, and as you go, you'll learn more about yourself as a graphic designer. Sometimes, I won't say it happens often, but occasionally it does. You have a designer that has a certain personality, but the way they're designed, the way they design would speak of an entirely different personality. Does that make sense? Meaning you may have someone that's very creative and funny and smart and happy-go-lucky kind of thing, but for some reason, all of the designs tend to be more reserved, more conservative. Well, if they design their website that's all fun and creative and outgoing and that sort of happy-go-lucky kind of design, and they throw in a bunch of designs that are very conservative, it's not going to look correct, is it? Something's going to feel a little off about that website. Because the website itself is designed in this happy-go-lucky thing, whereas the content on the page is very conservative. So you kind of have to match the things you have to put on your website with your web design itself. You can still be very conservative and have a great website layout that's very creative, but it still has a conservative theme. So be sure you keep that in mind, because it's not just about your personal personality. It's also about your design personality. Because really, the reality is those users aren't there to get to know you as a person. They're there to get to know you as the designer. Variety. Variety is the spice of life. One of the easiest design techniques is to center elements on the page. And many beginning designers start with that as their goal. All of their design elements start in the middle horizontally, but sometimes vertically as well. Centering appeals to many people because it's easy. You know you've done it right because half the page elements are on one side of the screen and the other half is on the other side of the screen. Remember the golden sections. But centering is boring. It's boring. Centering things makes them look very flat on the screen. And there is nothing for your eye to catch or hang on to. Centering is very rare in nature. In fact, even things that appear to be centered or symmetrical, like leaves, have small imperfections that lead the eye. Use the principles of Gestalt to create a variety of interest on your page. This may mean doing something simple as you have your grid pattern, right? You've got this grid to help you lay out your stuff. So that may mean that you're going to need some pictures bigger than other pictures, and you're going to make some type of collage on the page. Or you're going to implement several slideshows on a page, and you're going to kind of put them together in an interesting puzzle type arrangement so that they fit together, but they're not necessarily symmetrical. Does that make sense? Do you guys understand what I'm talking about there? You don't want to just line everything up in the middle of the page, because that's not really designing, that's just centering it on the page. So make sure that you design it. Does that mean you can't have two things the exact same side sitting side by side? No, that's not what I'm saying. But don't get stuck in that centering everything and not play around with the design and make it a little creative. Find the points of interest on your page. Points of interest are the focal points of a design, the places where your eye is drawn to. By changing the spacing around those points of interest, you can affect how those items are viewed on the page. For example, an image might be the focal point of your web page. You could choose to center the image on the page, but that's boring and flat. Instead, look at other elements on the page and change the margins around your image to create a design that heightens the interest in that image. So let's do some analyzing. I am going to pull up templates from monster.com, and we're going to take a look at them and see what makes them different. Now, keep this in mind, guys. Do not copy a template. How many of you can already look at a website and tell if it's template or if it's custom made? Now that I've said that, you guys are going to start looking at websites and you're going to know instantly whether it's a template or it's custom made. Yes, these templates have some great features. Absolutely. If you see a template that has an awesome feature and you want to do something like that on your website, absolutely. Steal the idea, but make it yours. There's a difference between stealing an idea and copying an idea. If you steal it, then you take that idea and you turn it into something that's actually yours, and it's not an identical copy. But you're going to see lots of things like that that will make you think, oh, that's really cool. I'd like to do something like that. And it's going to spur some inspiration, and that's absolutely awesome. Use those ideas, but do not find a template you like and decide to copy it. I'm going to know that that was a template, guys. I have been doing web design for a very long time. I'm going to instantly know if you've copied a template. So let's take a look at some of these templates. And as you can see, they're all kind of related. Let's see if we can find, let's look at some graphic design templates. There's quite a few graphic design templates on here, more than there used to be. That's good. So let's take let's take a look at some of these. Let's see, this one's interesting. I'm going to do live demo on that one. I'm going to pull up a few of these and then we'll take a look at them.
Hey. Want some discounts? Only the first 3,000 clients will get from $20 to $100 off every purchase. This spring only. Just add a template to your shopping cart.
I might have to find that video, guys. Give me just a second.
Don't worry. Our support team will gladly help you via the chat. Come on, beat the competitors now.
This is a good one. Okay, I've picked a few here. So let's take a look at these. This would be considered the home page of this template website. Now you see something that is actually lessening in popularity, having one big giant image that takes up the first 800 pixels. And then when you scroll down, you actually have information. This is more of a cascading type website. If you click on the About Us page, suddenly this picture is the same image that you found on the home page, but it becomes more of a banner image. And then you have the About Us information. Now there's some great stuff here. Don't get me wrong, this website's pretty cool, but it is just a template. And you can look to get ideas for a tablet view. It will show you what this would look like in tablet size. If the tablet was horizontal, it shows you what it would look like. And then of course you get the cell phone view. So you can see the responsiveness of all of these templates. But this is, and I can tell you with certainty, this big image in the first 800 pixels is losing popularity because it cuts down in your SEO. Search engines are programmed to crawl every web page, right? But guess what? Usually there's parameters, meaning they will actually only search the top so many pixels. Usually that's around 800, 5 to 800. Why? Because the first 5 to 800 pixels are what you normally see on the web page without scrolling. And the idea is, as we learned yesterday, one of those 8 principles is important information should be at the top, right? We talked about that yesterday. Your important information should be right there and readily available. Users shouldn't have to scroll to get to important information. So SEO, for the best SEO, you want your most important stuff within the first 5 to 800 pixels of your website. So let's take a look at this next template. And it's pretty much the same. You get the same giant image and you scroll, but look at that. What do you see that's absolutely wrong with this website? What's the first thing you notice? What's it missing? Can't really call this a navigation bar because it's more of a social media bar. Yeah, but look, the navigation bar, if you scroll down, suddenly you have a navigation bar. But do you want to have your user scroll to look at that? You don't, because they're not likely to go any further than right here. And they might, if you're lucky, click on your Twitter or your Facebook or your Pinterest site. They're not likely to look for that navigation. They don't see it. They're simply going somewhere else. Why make them scroll to find navigation? So now we have this setup. Now this is a little better. You've got a nice little slideshow on your homepage that's got some call outs, some calls to action. They're doing a little bit of selling on their website. Looks like they're doing vintage chalkboards, designing them, selling them. And cards, business cards, pet business cards. So they're showing off a little bit of their work while saying, here's how much I charge to design or print or whatever the case may be. So that's a good idea for your homepage because it definitely lets your customers know a little bit about your pricing and exactly what you do. And navigation bars up here at the top where the users know exactly where to find it. And then you get an instant look at their portfolio without it being actual slideshows. It's like another navigation to certain portfolio designs. So if we clicked on business cards, it would take you to their actual portfolio page for that business card. And then of course, this is kind of a retail store, so it's got some things that you can buy to make your own business cards and things like that. But you can see how you could use ideas like this on your own website. And to look at layout ideas. You know that you have to do an About Me page and portfolio page and that sort of thing. So you might look and see if there's any kind of about page. It doesn't look like this site actually has an about page. No, it doesn't look like they actually have an about page. This one does, and again, they have a nice little slideshow. Bright and original designs using innovative technologies. And they've got just a few background pictures that aren't their design, they're images. What would you say that this design studio does? Just looking at this banner, if you got on this page, what would you think they designed? Most likely it's specifically digital design, like websites and apps and things like that, right? And they have a nice sliding website too. Looks pretty good. And they are websites. They design websites. So let's check out the layout of their About Us page. Well, that's pretty cool. They have it set up in 2 different paragraphs, and it talks about their story and what they do. They have it listed how many projects they've done, how many happy clients they have, that sort of thing. And then it lists their actual people. Number one thing you need to remember, putting a photo of yourself on your About Me page is absolutely 100% necessary. Why? Because it adds that personal touch. It makes that personal connection. Let's look at the last example. I think this website is pretty creative. I'm not so crazy about them having this logo big and huge. I think it would have looked better if they'd have pushed it up here and brought their navigation up beside it. The logo is pretty awesome, but I don't think there was necessarily a reason it needed to take up this entire page. But as far as alignment goes, it's not centered, is it? It's kind of pretty interesting. And then it goes down to who they are. They're About Us. And you've got the portfolio. It doesn't look like their links are working though. This is a cascading page, I bet you. Our advantages, news and events. Let's see if I can refresh it and get the navigation to work. No, their navigation doesn't work. But you can see overall their design, they've got some pretty good ideas. So scrolling through these templates and helping you come up with layout ideas and things like that, absolutely, go for it. But do not use a template design. Steal the ideas from a template design, but make them your own. Come up with your own design. Make sense? And these templates are great for information about what's being done lately, the kind of trends that are going on, and just giving creative ideas about things you can do for your own site. Like this. This is a great very creative as far as graphics go, especially on the homepage. Come on. Sorry guys, my internet's been a little slow today. It's been storming all day long. But this is a pretty creative idea. It's kind of like a cut paper design, but you know it was done in Illustrator, but it kind of resembles cut paper. And they did a really good idea of making this really interesting. The only thing I don't like about it is the fact it's so narrow, and this would be considered a desktop version. If you went to tablet, perfect tablet size. The desktop version, they should have made a little bigger. I don't like the fact that it's so narrow because that's going to look funny on anybody's screen. But you can see how they've kind of kept that theme throughout. And versus putting real images in here, they made illustrated images. That's fine too, but you need to have that some sort of personal connection there. And they put some testimonials, and you can see they flipped it upside down. They did some really interesting things with this website. Now, what is missing is there's absolutely no navigation bar. This is undeniably a scrolling, cascading website. But if you're going to choose to do cascading, absolutely you can, that's fine. You still need a navigation bar. That when you click the button, it's automatically going to scroll to that section, so that users don't have to scroll on their own. It will automatically take them to that section. And most likely you're going to want to do some sort of side navigation that actually follows the user down the page. So it would be over here, and if they clicked what to do or about us or services, and it flipped down to the what to do section, the navigation bar would be located over here on the side. So it would slide with them so that they just click a button and go to the next place, or click the button to go back to where they were before. Make sense? But doing little creative things like this with your graphics on each page can really make a site go from being boring to extremely creative, because the reality is everything on this page is pretty centered, isn't it? Did you guys even notice that when I first looked at it? Everything on this page is centered. But because they've done such a good job with their graphics, it doesn't look quite as boring as it would if everything was just centered on this page, does it? So centering doesn't always mean boring. It just depends on how you've used the graphics and things to your advantage if you're creating a site like this. Okay, placement and position review. Now that we've gone over placing and positioning our elements, let's do a quick review and discuss some other parameters that may be needed before we dive into our wireframing. What should show on all pages? The things that should go on your master page. Things like your logo, your tagline, your navigation, your footer content, which should contain your copyright, and it may contain some site links or contact info and phone number. That's becoming very popular, to be able to scroll down to the bottom of a page, a web page, and find the company's phone number. That's becoming very, very popular lately. So doing things like that, but you want all of this stuff to appear on every single page. So do that on the master pages. That way you don't have to try and lay them out the exact same on every single page. Now, what do you think about points of interest, variety, gestalt, hierarchy, composition? Are those things important? Should your points of interest show out? Should they stand out? Should you draw attention to those things? You should, right? Points of interest are very important because they're what keep users on your website. Variety. You don't want to repeat the exact same example of design work on every single page. You want to make sure you give them a variety of stuff. Gestalt. We talked a lot about Gestalt yesterday and how using that to build your wireframe will help ensure that you come up with something that's really creative. So think about those things. We all have favorite colors, favorite graphics, the things we kind of float towards when we're designing stuff ourselves. We include a certain color or we include certain types of graphics, whether it be of clouds or like yesterday when we seen the whole hot air balloon thing. We all manage to incorporate them somewhere when we're designing just for us. Well, they may not necessarily be a good idea for your website. However, you could do a Gestalt type design that incorporated that shape without incorporating the actual graphic. So keep that in mind. Hierarchy. We talked about how extremely important that is in web design. Again, your most important information should be within the top 500 pixels, 800 pixels max. But you want to get the most important things in the top 500, and then anything that's still important, as long as it's within that first 800 pixels, you're usually pretty good. Desktops will show the first 800 pixels, whereas laptops will show the first 500 pixels. Composition, absolutely important. You want to make sure you don't have any spelling or grammar or punctuation errors. Make sure your text is readable. That means not using decorative fonts in your paragraph text. Make it a serif or sans serif font, not a decorative font, because it's difficult to read on a monitor screen. Now let's talk about our assessment for this week, because that's where you're starting this week. You're starting with your wireframe. So your assessment first and your assignment second. For this assignment, you will create your wireframe of all the pages in use, using your site map as a reference from week 1. Then you will set up the general wireframe dimensions for your header, footer, and any sidebar or special sections on the website by blocking out the sections using a rectangle tool. At this point, do not add any color or graphics. If every page will have the exact same framework layout, then create it on the master page. If your home page's framework is laid out different than some of the other pages, then you will need to create and set up a master page for those layouts as well. That is specifically talking about the things that are going to be on every single page, like where your logo, your footer, and your navigation bar is located. It's not talking about the main content. Only the stuff that's going to be on every single page should be on the master page. All instructions below, we're going to demonstrate in just a few minutes. Your actual instructions are to create a new site using Muse. Choose fluid width, choose the number of columns you are using in your grid. 12 is recommended. Adjust the gutter per your layout, or you can use the default. I normally use the default. The max page width should be at least 1,000 pixels. But if your design requires it to be wider, then put that number in. Under advanced settings, choose your minimum width and your minimum height according to your design layout discussed in your creative brief for week 1. Set your margins and padding according to your design layout discussed in your creative brief for week 1. Select sticky footer if your site has a footer. Every site has to have a footer because you do have to have the copyright information on there. So make sure there's a check mark next to sticky footer. When you have all your settings complete, simply click OK. In plan view, you're going to add all your pages from your sitemap to your Muse plan view. On the master page, just using black, white, and grays, block out the different areas of your content. Your header, your footer, sidebar navigation areas, anything that's going to appear on every single page. As mentioned in the intro, if your site has pages that are different layout than the home page, be sure to add a second master, meaning your home page is set up one way as far as logo, navigation, and footer. Then the inside pages, your additional top level pages, are set up slightly different. Maybe your home page has a horizontal navigation bar, but all your other pages have a vertical navigation bar. Your navigation's in a sidebar. Then you would want to set up 2 master pages for that. You're going to save the file as DES241, portfolio wireframe, your first name, your last name, .muse. And then you're going to submit for grading by the due date and time, which is Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Any questions before we jump into the demo? No questions? Okay, then let's switch over to Muse. Here is my Muse screen. You're going to go to File, and you're going to go to New Site. And you're going to get a little spinny thing for a second, and then your box is going to pop up. I'm going to go ahead and open those advanced settings. Fluid width, it should default to fluid width, but if it does not say fluid width, right there in this corner, my box disappeared. There it is. If it does not say fluid width right there in that corner, make sure you click the drop down and you set it to fluid width. It defaults page size at 960. Yours needs to be at least 1,000. I normally design at 1280. But you need to at least design to 1,000 pixels. That will show up for those of you using a laptop. 1,000 pixels is probably as big as you want to go at the moment, because that will allow you to see the entire page width on your laptop without having to set breakpoints for your responsiveness. So set yours at about 1,000, and that way you can be sure, you'll be able to be sure that you're seeing the exact layout as you're designing it before you add the breakpoints for responsiveness, which happens in week 4, I believe. And I'm gonna set my columns to 12. Minimum width 320, that's the smallest cell phone size. Minimum height, I'm going to turn this down to 300 pixels. Why? Because I may have a page or two that doesn't actually have enough stuff to create 500 pixels worth of stuff. So I'm going to turn it down to like 300. I'm going to keep my defaults, my margins. I'm not going to set any padding. I'm going to make sure my page is centered. And I'm going to make sure there's a check mark right here, down here on this sticky footer. Make sure that's check marked. And hit OK. Now it automatically creates the home page for you. So then you need to create, let's see, home, whoops, portfolio, and I misspelled that. There we go. Portfolio, about, contact. Well, there's all of my pages that I'm going to have. So they're all lined up. And then I need to do the wireframe for my navigation, my footer, and anything like that that's going to be on every single page. So I'm going to start. My logo is kind of an oval type shape. So first thing I'm going to do is I am going to, these two little blue arrows, mark your header area. So anything within these two blue lines is your header. I need that to be bigger. I'm going to pull it to like 150 pixels. My logo is going to go up here at the top. I think it's going to go in this left-hand edge. I think we'll go right there. And I'm going to fill it with black. And then I'm going to need a navigation. I'm going to go ahead and go into my widgets library. And I'm going to pull out the navigation I'm going to use. Its default color is gray. So I'm going to leave it gray. But I'm going to go ahead and put this where it's going to go. And I'm not going to really actually have buttons. I'm going to turn off this fill color. And just turn my text on. And then I need my footer area. And it's going to have my copyright text in it, and it's going to have some social media icons in it. So I'm going to go back to I'm going to make some small circles here. One. Two. And three. I'm going to put my social media icons down in the bottom. I'm going to align these. I'm going to simply hold my shift key down and select all of those. Go to align, align to selection. Make sure they're all aligned good. And I'm going to center them there a little bit like that. So that's everything I'm going to have on every single page. I haven't put my copyright stuff down there, and you can go ahead and do that if you want. You do not have to include text, but if you want to go ahead and get that out of the way, you can go ahead and add your copyright information there. Alt, holding your Alt key down and hitting the letter G as in giraffe will automatically make the copyright symbol for you. And I'm definitely going to make that smaller. So there's the information I'm going to have on every single page. My logo, my navigation bar, and the stuff in my footer. I'm going to close that master page. And it automatically puts it on every single one of these pages. So then I'm going to go into the home page, and I need to start designing the main content. So let's see, on my home page, I am going to do, I'm actually going to do a slideshow across the top of it, a little banner slideshow. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my widgets and go to my slideshows. I'm going to do the basic. I'm going to pull it out. And I'm going to turn off the previous, the next, the captions, the counter. And set it to autoplay. And then I'm going to resize it. Right now, it's definitely bigger than I want it to be. And I want to do something like that. And then I want to add, I'm going to add some icons that are going to be more of a circle shape. This. And I'm going to put those underneath here. Going to select them all. Go back to those alignment. I'm going to make sure they're good and aligned and that the spacing is distributed correctly. I'm going to have some little icons on under here that talk about the different types of design I do. And then I'm going to have a place for just text. Since I want to make sure the website depicts this correctly, my wireframe, I'm just going to add a clear box. And come on, move down. I'm going to move it down just to add enough space there so I get a good idea with using my wireframe of how big the actual home page will be. I'm going to center that. I'm not going to color it in because this is just going to be text itself. So I'm not going to bother coloring it in because you don't have to show text. You need to be showing graphics and things like that. Graphics, images, that sort of thing. So I'm going to leave it like that. And this is what my home page is going to look like. So then I'm going to close that. There's my home page. And then I'm going to open up my portfolio page. Now my portfolio page is going to contain all of my designs except for I'm going to break it down. And I think I may use a couple of different images. I'm going to do more of a, I haven't decided really whether I want to do multiple slideshows or if I want to arrange thumbnails on here. There are quite a few widgets that you can download for slideshows. We talked about this. We talked about this last week. There's a lot of third-party widgets you can download, and I think I'm going to go in and find one of those. I thought I already had one downloaded for that, but oh, there's my gallery, but that's the flip pages. That's the playing cards. I want an actual thumbnail gallery. So I'm going to have to draw it out. I'm just going to grab my square tool. Oops. And I'm going to make my first square. Turn it gray. And turn this one gray. And then I'm basically going to kind of repeat this pattern for a second. Paste. Here. Get those nice and aligned. Now you guys see what I'm talking about as far as kind of fitting it together like puzzle pieces. Copy this one and paste it. And I'm going to pull it down here. And Muse has some really helpful tools. Like you see, if I hover there, it will show me that that's 19 pixels from the top. And it's even with the row above it. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that there. Select these two and paste them. Looks like this is just a little bit bigger here. I'm going to copy and paste these two. These need to be scooted down. Much better. So now this is going to be my portfolio page. It's going to have two big images on it and two smaller thumbnail type images, which means I'm going to have to do some photoshopping of my actual work to get them to fit like this. And when you click on those, it's going to be a light box that'll pop up on the screen and show the image larger. These will just be specific size thumbnails. And if you notice, my footer sits right on top of the bottom of that. I want to make sure that's a little bit longer. I'm just going to grab that first blue arrow down at the very bottom and drag it down a little bit and add some white space there. And I'm going to have to add some white space at the top of this page because it's going to need a name. And there we go. It's going to need a heading. So I'm going to pull this down some more and add some room there. Oops. Add that white space. Add that white space. Now, if I look at this page, view, the page in window, and I bring down a guideline, I'm going to mark my first 500. There's my first 500 pixels. There's my first 800 pixels. Not too bad, because they are definitely going to see the top of these thumbnails, which means they're going to automatically know they need to scroll down while they're seeing a whole set at the top part of the portfolio. And then the rest of those images they almost fit in that top 800 pixels. So I think we're pretty good there. I'm not going to have a little bit of text on this portfolio page, and I will have some text over some of these images. There will probably be some overlapping boxes here that talk about what they are, like print design, web design, branding, that sort of thing. I'm going to kind of turn this page into, add a little bit of typography on it, so to speak, and make it look really designed. So there's the portfolio page. And then the About page. Now, the About page always tends to be the most boring page out there. Simply because it's the About page. It's going to have your bio. It's going to have a picture of you on it. So I'm going to add my picture. I think I'll make my picture a circle. I'm going to add my picture over here, which means my text is going to be on this side. And on this page, I'm also going to add my Facebook comments. I may add the Pinterest logo to this page too, but definitely the Facebook comments. I'm going to pull that out. And I'm going to line it up over here. It's going to be underneath my paragraph, so it'll probably start about right there. Put some white space in here. And actually, I think we'll do this opposite. I'm going to pull this over here. Like that. And I'm going to find another graphic to add right in here. And my text for my About Me will be up here. So there's my About. And then, of course, the contact page. Definitely know that I'm going to have a form. So you have to have a contact form. I'm going to go ahead and go to that widgets library, and I'm going to go ahead and pull out the form. This is just going to save me work next week. If I pull out that form now, it'll already be here and available for me to use next week. Now, on my form, it's too small. So I'm going to double click that little input box there, and I'm going to make this bigger. And now I'm going to have to actually make some adjustments here. And I need to make my comments box bigger. I'm going to center this. I want to bring this down some more. I'm going to center this. I'm going to have some sort of little graphic line break right there. I will likely have my phone number, my Skype buttons, all of that right here at the top. And then it's going to say contact me. And it'll have my contact form. And I don't want to do that. I think we'll move my contact form to this side of the screen. And I'm going to go back to my widgets, go back to my social, and I'm going to add a Google Map. And I'm going to add my Google Maps there. Now, if you pull out a widget that actually has color in it, if it's an actual widget, it doesn't matter. It's just the Google Maps that has color. All of the rest of them are pretty much laid out in gray, except for like the Facebook. So if you pull out one of these widgets to show, that's fine. I'm not going to count off because that widget has color in it. But anything that you actually physically make, like your squares and your circles, they need to be black, white, and gray, guys. Now at the top, I'm going to have, I need a place for my privacy policy. And sometimes you put that on your contact page. And sometimes you would put that on a separate page. And looking at the design of my contact page, I'm going to need a separate page. So I'm going to add a child page to my contact page. And I'm going to use it for my privacy policy, which means I need to go back to my master page because it needs a link somewhere. I want to put it down here in the footer. So I'm going to make a link. Privacy policy. Like that. And then I'm going to go back to my plan view because I need to make sure my privacy policy does not show up as a drop down. Right now, it does show up as a drop down. We go into this and we look at preview. And I go to my contact page. Oh, it's not showing up as a drop down. Oh, goody. So in my plan view, I can right click on this thumbnail and you have a thing called menu options. Include with hyperlink. That's fine. Exclude from menus. I want to exclude it from my menus. I'm going to make sure it does not appear on the navigation bar at all, ever. So I have to actually link on my master page. I would actually have to link this. So I would select it, and right here where it says hyperlinks, I would click this drop down and choose contact privacy. And click that hyperlinks and open in a new window or tab. No, I want it to open in the same window because it's part of the website and not third party. Text link style, we'll go for default right now, but I'll have to edit it at some point. So that's my wireframe. Now my privacy policy isn't going to be anything but text, but considering my privacy policy is pretty small, I am going to put a graphic at the bottom of it. So I'm going to draw the square across here. Turn it gray. And it needs to be bigger. Probably about like that. And I'm going to drag it down. Add some space and add some space for this footer. Not that much. Like that. So there's my privacy policy. So technically, every single one of my pages has a different main content layout. So I had to do a wireframe on every single page. Any questions, guys? This is what I'm talking about for your wireframe. Keep it all black, white, and gray. If you use a widget, it's fine if it has an image in it or if it has color on it. Otherwise, anything that you put on the page needs to be black, white, or gray. Any questions? The copyright, if you hold down your Option key and hit the letter G as in George, it will automatically make the copyright symbol for you. And that's for anyone using a Mac. I'm not sure what the Windows shortcut is to the copyright. If you give me a second, I'll look just so we can make sure everybody knows how to do it. Shortcuts. Okay, if you're on a PC, Then you hold down the Alt key and you type 0169. So on a Mac, Option G is in George. On a PC, Alt key 0169. Any other questions, guys? You're still working on your logo? Well, if you decide you need some help with it, you are more than welcome to come in and see me in the SSC on Thursday or Friday, and I'll help you work on it. Any other questions, guys? Okay, guys, if there's not any more questions, then we'll call it a night. And tomorrow we will work on walking through the mock-up and the things you need to do to get your images ready. Can we change our logo from the one used on the sitemap? Absolutely. Yes, if you've improved your logo, that sort of thing, absolutely. Use your final version. All right, guys. Well, I will see you tomorrow, and we will start working on mock-ups and getting our images web ready. And we'll touch on some quick masking and that sort of thing, just as a refresher for anyone that needs it. I will see you guys tomorrow.